continue. Okay, well, first, thank you very much, Moki. I'll keep you quiet for the invitation to talk to you guys about some of the offerings we do through INBRE, in particular. Hang on, let me just remove pin me. Okay, so what we basically do is a statewide undergraduate research experience program. And we also support a lot of junior investigators in their work across the various campuses. And this includes Windward Community College, Leeward Community College, Kapolani, Maui College now, West Oahu, University of West Oahu, University of Hilo, University of Hawaii at Hilo, also the pharmacy school, as well as our main school, Manoa, and then also Chaminade and Hawaii Pacific University. So we have a very large network of faculty and students who participate in this year-long program. It has 3 cycles a year, and students can enter anytime. And once you become a part of the INBRE, you're part of our INBRE Ohana, and we'll kind of describe what that actually means. So I'm Dr. J.P. Bingham. I'm an associate professor in molecular bioscience and bioengineering. My specialty is biochemistry, but also my specialty is trying to ensure that students are given a great research experience to really venture where they want to go and what they want to pursue ultimately in their degrees, whether it be a graduate degree or moving on to an actual positional job. So I'm the Pathways Director for the whole program, so I supervise the whole state, but I'm also the University of Hawaii Manoa campus coordinator specifically. So I actually in charge of all the Manoa students who are actually doing research either at JABSOM, at the medical school, or on the main campus. So what INBRE is a part of, it's in a part of what we call the Ideal Network. And the Ideal Network is an establishment by the National Institutes of Health to a number of states who are not getting their fair share per capita of NIH funding. So this money comes directly to us to try and stimulate and promote both the activities that we want to see in medical research, but also allow us to really expand the students' capacity to get access to these types of programs. So we're part of the Ideal Network, but INBRE stands for the Ideal Network for Biomedical Research Experience. And as we said, we abbreviate as INBRE. And it's been around for actually quite a few years. It's very popular with Congress. We're actually about to do our renewal for our grant. It's been going for 18 years, and it's funded by the National Institutes of General Medicine, and who support basic research to basically understand the complexity of biology and to help understand some of the foundational processes that really advance in diseases and disease diagnostics, as well as treatment and prevention. So they're very connected in regards to doing basic research. So it's, the research we kind of support is just not medical research, it's basic research that can lead into aspects of medical endeavors. So the INBRE Ohana program, this is actually from, I haven't got the number, all the numbers are in there, but we had 48 students in our program for spring, 40 for fall, and for summer we had 51. That doesn't include, we had a very large number of students who came from mainland schools because we were in that closed down period for COVID, and we actually offered an online bioinformatics course, which we'll be offering an extension of that. I'll talk a little bit about that today also. So we have these summer, fall, and spring cycle. So we have 3 cycles a year, which you can actually partake in. And basically what we do, we provide you a research environment, find you a mentor, and ideally really get you to work with that person of your choice. So there's a bit of work that you have to do, understanding what the student wants and what the student wants to achieve in their research endeavors to get where they need to be. So, a lot of campuses, a lot of students, obviously Manoa always seemed to have the more students than any other campus. So we usually have about 20 to 24, 25 students at a time. So we have these requirements for the student. This is Plan B, given our COVID situation. So we normally run by Plan A, but this is Plan B. You'll be 18 years of age. You've got to be registered at a university, which is a part of the INBRE program. So that's, it could be KCC or Manoa or Chaminade University. You've got to have a GPA equivalent of greater than 2.75, which I think most of you guys would have. And you want to be really in a behavioral bioscience, biology, genetics, community health kind of program. And ultimately, we want to try and get you to move into, a graduate program, which we will talk a little bit about more in some of the activities that INBRE actually partakes and really helps. So we have a statewide orientation, laboratory certification. We've got to basically meet with the mentor to make sure the student is aware of what they need to do. We actually get them to submit a curricular vitae at the part of the application process because we want a starting point. Because one of the programs we do is actually improve on this. We actually get students to do a course in regards to improving their curricular vitae, and we pull out a lot of teeth in regards to things that students didn't realize they should actually have on their professional development profile. This professional development profile also leads into helping us work with the CV. And this is a thing that we get all our students to do, and it actually gives them an idea in regards to forward planning, in regards to making sure they're aware of deadlines for, let's say, their MCATs or medical school applications, and ultimately planning classes that they need to formally graduate, as well as meet certain requirements within the various medical schools. So we do this every semester, and we want students to revise it, and we ask them to redo it once a year and just formally submit it, but they're quite welcome to do it every semester. And we find that has actually had a major impact on organizing our students. Also, we have the Biomedical Research Symposium, which actually I'm about to present next Friday in regards to, we'll have some of our interns observing, others of the associate and the scholars are going to be actually partaking. Now that gets down to this different classification of the intern, associate, and scholar, and we do have some different requirements where the intern for Manoa specifically is a non-paid position. So one cycle, it's not paid, just to get you familiar with the system, get you into the laboratory, get you all your safety compliances and your literature read. And then we actually then bring you in as an associate. And that's where basically we'll give you $1,000 to partake in this program, as well as some money towards the laboratory for the consumables, usually $1,000 too. So we expect you to have, some activities, and we'll do some of these activities during the summer. We'll have research seminars, professional development seminars, and I'll show you some of those ones that we've actually had on our schedule for last summer. So you'll get an idea of what we actually do. We have recommend weekly laboratory meetings with the PI or the principal investigator or the mentor. Very important to keep on track. And then I do want you to submit a scientific reflection paper or scientific paper. And one thing with science and research, it takes significant time and effort to get science moving in the right direction, to get the results which are publishable. So it could take up to 2 to 3 cycles easily to actually start getting data, and then maybe a 3rd or 4th cycle. So you're looking at minimum 1.5 to 2 years of commitment to get something that is tangible to be published in a peer-reviewed journal, because that's where we want you to be. Because again, if you're applying for some of these graduate schools, particularly medical school, if you go with a peer-reviewed publication under your name, you are going to get noticed. You are going to be standing out from the herd of the majority of the applicants that you are going to be contending with or competing against for those limited medical school positions. So again, just keep that in mind, that it takes a lot of effort to get to the stage of being able to produce a scientific peer-reviewed paper. We have some other components where we have some tracking issues where basically there's a level of commitment where we're trying to make sure that we're pursuing the student after INBRE in regards to just checking up. What are they doing? Where are they going? How did they go? Are they in medical school? Are they in graduate school? So we need to have this type of information. You'll get little surveys from us as the years go on. They're pretty easy to actually work with. So as I said, we had usually plan A, which is full student engagement in research, but with COVID, we went to plan B, which was basically first 3 weeks of online. We did some activities there in regards to seminars and some symposia stuff, and then back to face-to-face lab research with the necessary measures and insurances in place. So we wanted to make sure everybody was, aware of their PPE requirements. Working in a research laboratory is dangerous to first to think of, but more dangerous with COVID around, and allowing us really to then promote the whole process of going on to allow us to have the research experience, because that's what students want. They want the research experience. So we've had these active plans for COVID, so we're pretty safe. And so far, I've not had one student contract COVID during the semester so far. So some of the other activities which make INBRE very valuable to students is the issue of CV writing. As I said, that becomes a very clear definitional piece of paper, one-dimensional piece of paper that you present yourself as a professional. Applying to medical school, this was a very interesting one. I gave a seminar at West Oahu, which was supposed to be for an hour. three and a half hours later, they were pretty abreast of what they needed to do to get into medical school, how do they need to apply, making their choices and selections, and ensuring that they're doing what they call due diligence correctly. So they're not just applying to get into a medical school, they're applying to a target medical school, which will accept them and allow them to actually then get a particular level of interest or degree of interest in medicine. Also, we promote the idea about going to graduate school. We had a panel discussion on that. And I believe actually Jenny helped us with that medical school discussion. We had another open panel where we had a number of students who had previously taken the MCATs to discuss about their experience with the MCATs in regards to the difficulties, the strategic planning, the preparation. So that was very informative to our students. Also, being a career scientist, and particularly the opportunities it provides you. Look at myself, I was born in England, moved to Australia, got educated in Australia, moved to the United States. I was thinking I was only going to be here for 6 months. That's nearly 22 years later. So, it's an issue that there's a lot of opportunities, and sometimes a doctoral degree will give you that potential to move internationally, secure work, and, make a career internationally for yourself. We also had are you ready to start job hunting? Particularly those, not all students want to be medical doctors or be PhDs or whatever. We want to make sure that they have some skill bases that they can actually go through the job interview process and stand away from the herd of applicants to hopefully be the individual person to get that job. Just remember, as I've said to many of my students, there may be 200 applicants for one job. There's going to be 199 people who are going to be disappointed. There's going to be only one winner. Okay, so again, we're going to make sure you're that winner. And then also what gets you into medical school, some of the strategies and things I talked about with West Oahu specifically in regards to making sure you have strong letters of recommendation with people who you do know, that it's just not professors who you've had one class with. Ensuring that you've done your due diligence in the school and you know what school you're talking about, because when you're doing the interview and you know more in-depth information about the school than most students, they would clearly demonstrate that you've done your homework. So that's really important. And what I'll do, I'll give you this slide so your Kiana can actually send this to the students. And we have a Google Drive which has some shared documents. Most of the little videos that I've done in regards to, you want to go over there, Daisy? Sit down. In regards to just getting prepared for exams, time management. So there's a whole load of bits and pieces of information which we have put up there to make things useful. So our main 5 topics, as I kind of described most of them already, is the CV preparation, where there's homework and videos, and we'll actually do a summer session course. And we get one example of this when you actually apply to the INBRE program. So ultimately time zero, and then ideally we want to see an improvement, and we'll help you improve that document as time goes on. The individual professional development plans, I'll talk a little bit about these, but as I said, these are basically giving our students a level of guide strategy and planning, particularly forward planning, to allow them to really think the directions they need to do and the things they need to cover to ensure that they get where they want to be. Cover letters is an also very important thing with a CV when you're writing for a position or applying for a job, to ensure you produce a strong cover letter. And we have some how-to videos to do those in the summer lecture series. And also I provide both review and feedback, as I do with the IDP and with the CV. So a part of being an INBRE, you get access to the director who will actually help you hopefully get to where you want to be. Job searching skills, interview skills, very important. We do this activity using a number of different methods, but mainly we try and find students to first find a job which they might be interested in applying to as a mock, and then we go through the whole process of developing a cover letter, developing the CV specifically for that position, and then potentially looking at what kind of questions they may ask you in the interview and how you need to appropriately respond. And obviously the graduate school, medical school track, always very popular. We have a lot of students in INBRE who are pre-med, and so they do take advantage of the office hours that I provide in getting feedback on their personal their personal statement, direction in regards to courses that they might need to do, particularly if they're going post-bac or doing a gap year. There's some strategies that you need to undertake to ensure that basically you're still a highly competitive applicant for the position that you're applying for. So we have the INBRE Symposium. We actually cancelled it last year because of COVID, just after the main lockdown. But we're seeing an increase in our poster presentations, and we're going to have, there's a deadline already submitted for abstracts. So you're going to see some students who are going to really take their work to the next level. They can use this as a part of their CV to say where they've actually presented their work. And then we'll be actually doing a virtual program for them for this, actually for next week, actually. So I've got to do some work on that once I finish up today. But ultimately, in our summer program, we had 3 courses of bioinformatics. Now, this is something that, medical students and pre-med students are starting to become a little aware of. I would suspect in the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to be seeing a lot more genetic-based diagnostics and preemptive diagnostics in regards to understanding our own gene sequences. And so this bioinformatics program actually gave a very good introduction to 3 areas of basic bioinformatics, so people can start being familiar with data searches and what the information actually physically means in regards to genetic analysis. And we're going to actually be offering another more advanced course, but all these courses, these 1, 2, 3, the introduction, intermediate, and advanced, is actually all been videoed. So students can actually go through those and do the coursework on video, and then be prepared for the second course that we'll be offering in this summer. But as I said, we had a lot of students participating, particularly we had some from Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, in regards to students who were partaking in our introductory program because their INBRE programs were all closed due to COVID. So we offered and shared our aloha with them. Go sit down, Daisy. Thank you. So basically the bioinformatics course in the summer, the second course we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at hemoglobin and mismatched gene repairs, and looking at specifically at the biological issues in regards to sequence and sequence analysis and sequence alignment. We're going to also be using a little bit of R language to look at phylogenetic trees and building those relationships between genetic information. And then importantly, we're going to be looking at protein analysis and some of the machine learning tools that people are utilizing to, manage very large databases of protein information being derived from the genes. So again, this is going to be an area in molecular medicine which is becoming very, very apparent and coming all the way down to the general physician in regards to being able to have these advanced genetic tests done and get some interesting analysis done based on a disease or pathology or even on a family history. So these things are becoming very, very important to understand. And also we have some other things that we like to really promote, and obviously our research experience and basically ensuring that you do learn something, that we're preparing you somehow to move forward into your vocation. and importantly, helping you identify realistic goals. And they have to be realistic. You know, you've got a GPA of 3, potential of you going to medical school is very, very slim. So we've got to be realistic and look at the different avenues that can be also open to you in regards to, instead of maybe medicine. So we do professional career building on that particular aspect, which I've also already illustrated a few things already. So the CVs, as I said, become an essential part. As you've seen here before, the work job readiness is really interesting. We're going to need to be developing more of that because we're going to be seeing a lot of money coming from the stimulus package to really promote skill bases that allow people to get into research laboratories, not necessarily as a master's or a PhD, but as a technician. So we're going to be focusing on that in coming years. The individual development plans, this is really interesting. We devised and developed this to really, as I said, try to provide the student a kind of a very brief outline. So if they're going to talk to anyone in regards to their careers, they can just pop this out and show the individual what they're doing in regards to their short-term goals, their overall expectations, their past top accomplishments, their strengths and their weaknesses, and some of the projected courses, and also their desired outcomes. So, and it goes through this is actually the output from the survey. And there's a number of questions. There's actually 9 questions that the student actually fills in and generates this particular goal sheet. So it's actually very, very streamlined. And it's, you know, basically it's going to try and provide concise career planning and goal summary. You can use this to consult with your mentor. You can define your realistic goals and objectives. And then also look at working with the campus coordinator to get those resources if you need particular resources. And there's full instructions on this system. It's 9 questions that students fill out online and then self-summarize and populates this particular table. The main thing is, and there's some limitations in regards to forward planning. Another exercise that it actually undertakes is concise communication. That's something in science that we really have to promote. So with the concise communication component, you've got word limits to be able to fulfill in these particular areas. So again, it gives you an idea that, you know, you have to be concise and precise and colorful with your language and descriptive, but not too waffly. Again, identifying realistic expectations and possible outcomes, and as well as utilizing this, we do utilize this as evaluation materials. Have your realistic goals or your accomplishments, as well as your strengths and weaknesses, changed as you've been in INBRE. So, you know, there's a load of things we like to examine in regards to how INBRE has impacted the student to better them, to hopefully figure out where they're going. So this is just an example of what you'll see in the INBRE individual professional development plan. You know, here's your word limit. So again, list 2 top research skills that you believe are required to ensure your professional success in INBRE. And basically, it's also to promote a lot of discussions between you and the mentor. Sometimes we have to have what we call icebreakers to allow you to do this. And we believe this is a very good icebreaker where, you know, you might want to talk to your mentor and say, hey, you know, what kind of skills do you think you think I need to be successful in this project? Or, you know, how did you come to your decision of where the career you'll want to go? And how did you actually finally finalize that particular goal step? So again, we're trying to really promote the career mentor-student relationship, because again, you will need that relationship if you want very strong recommendation letters. And this is actually a perfect opportunity to start building upon those. We look at also specifically good laboratory practices, the commitment to research, specifically the effort. And I've talked a little bit about the requirements of the INBRE research participation already, and then we'll have a look at some questions and answers if there's some to be had. So good laboratory practices, you know, we really want you to be able to be a good researcher. You need to be able to plan your research activities, perform them, as well as monitor them to make sure they're safe, and as well report and archive those, because it's this reporting and archiving that's very important. You know, you can't remember what you've done last week, let alone, you know, 2 years ago in regards to your work. So you use laboratory workbooks or notebooks. Most people use ebooks now. I use an ebook, write my lab stuff up. And it's just not for you, but it's also important because this actually becomes a legal document. So when we look at patents or patents, in the United States, it's first to conceive instead of first to file. So if somebody has got the same idea as you independently, or not independently, and you can prove that you have established this work prior to them putting a provisional patent in or a full patent in, you can actually contest it in court. So it's very important that there's a legal aspect in regards to these notebooks. So also good practices also envelop the work environment, and good practices can be self-imposed, laboratory guided practice, meaning compliance practices, but also regulatory practices in regards to, there might be some mandated components in dealing with waste or particular compounds in the laboratory safely. There's also collegial and professional work standards that we must all comply to. And you might have heard of the Student Code of Conduct. Again, we expect students to have a particular role of conduct in dealing and working with us and working in our research environment. So we need those to be adhered to. But there's also training. So one thing INBRE does, we do a lot of training in regards to safety, because unknown to a lot of you students that these are actually very important parts in your CV. If you've demonstrated that you can comply to the state or federal regulations, and you've got certain skills with safety, like whether it be waste disposal, radiation, first aid, CPR, etc. These are tangible commodities that should be listed in your CV, because they give you an illustration of what you can do and what you are certified to do. Though maybe the certifications only last for a year, you could say they're expired, but you can actually still renew those at a later date. Compliance issues, there might be state, federal, and local regulations, particularly if you're dealing with human subjects or dealing with animals. So again, there's some specific requirements in dealing with data and how to handle your subjects physically or virtually in regards to how you keep things in a non-identifiable manner, whether you're doing data analysis and public health in regards to keeping client confidentiality or subject confidentiality. And there might be also regulations that are set with animals in regards to how you work with animals, how you have to look after them, and particularly if they're under due stress and it's what they call a class E experiment, where it usually leads to a catastrophic situation, death, how you anesthetize or euthanize those animals in the appropriate manner at the appropriate time. So there's a lot of regulations that go into laboratory work practices, and some of them are a little bit morbid, but this is what we have to do to ensure people are safe and animals are well respected and utilized. Commitment to research is a significant effort, but the point I want to make sure you understand leaving, that research is a collaboration, it's a teamwork. No one person can do all the research. It's usually going to be either with a peer or with a collaborator in another campus, or a collaborator in another university, or collaborate in another part of the world in regards to being able to seek assistance and expertise to really have a formal collaboration to really advance the research that you're doing. As I said, you can't do everything. So the things we ask our students is, what drives you to your goals in regards to your research? What kind of project are you thinking about? And when you got that project, how do you design it? Or what are you going to do in regards to the planning and then ultimately the execution? How are you going to interpret the results and analyze those results in regards to statistical analysis? So that becomes a very important aspect in regards to doing research. And then we have our presentations, posters, and publications. That's where we want to be. But the sad thing is, it all takes a lot of time, and we have so little time to actually spare in doing this type of work. So we really got to push the students on to really move them through. But again, collaboration is the key component, teamwork, learning. There's a lot of repetition in science in regards to ensuring that things are working correctly, checking and rechecking, another aspect of repetitional work. But again, collaboration is a key component in advancing the research in a minimal amount of time. As I said, there's some requirements. I've talked about those already in regards to the symposia and the laboratory assessment productivity requirement. But the other thing is, INBRE also gives you access as a student to mainline site visits and particularly at the NIH, as well as other opportunities. We've sent students to New Mexico to do mass spectrometry and proteomics. We've sent students to some online seminars and conferences, more so recently with the COVID situation. So we're seeing a lot more interest in regards to getting this outside experience from Manoa, which is great, or from the state of Hawaii specifically. So this is, again, we have this capacity to fund students to go to conferences, whether it be virtual or real, and basically provide them the opportunities to present their work, which is the main thing. Students have to do a reflection paper and a mentor discussion reflection paper, where they basically sometimes interview their mentor and say, okay, you know, what some of the things have you been, you know, found that I've done well? What did you see my strengths are? Where do you see my weaknesses? Where do you see I'm going with this work? You know, how much, what have I contributed in your eyes? You know, so again, you're getting some very significant feedback, which is very important for you. So as I said, I'm the campus coordinator, and I do advice careers, careers on advice on careers. I've had a lot of experience in doing this. With the advice on academics, I was the graduate chair of my department a few years ago, and basically the largest graduate department at Manoa. And so I was very aware of the academic procedures and compliances that graduate students need to undertake, and how to get into graduate schools too. Advice on research aspects, particularly my field. Unless I don't know that field, I will find somebody who does, who will be able to advise you. And as I said, advice on medical schools. I went to Yale Medical School, been heavily involved in students getting into medical school for over 20 plus years. Basically, I think my tally now is over 200, supported over 200 students getting into medical school itself, whether it be at JABSOM or mainland schools. So my goal is to really get the best out of you and help prepare you to the real world in regards to your next stage of your career. And that, again, applying to grad schools, picking good advisors, career preparation, and importantly, the ups and downs of being a scientist. You know, that's one thing about being a scientist, is dealing with disappointment. You know, only 10% of the research actually works. So you just got to be aware of that. So if you need some advice, I have my email down there below. I usually have student meetings between 8 and 12 noon. Just email me for an appointment. If you're interested in thinking about INBRE and looking at the opportunities it may offer you, please come and contact me, and we can talk more about what INBRE can offer you specifically to your particular plan in regards to what you want to do in your careers. And I know a few of you have already spoken to you about this, and I will tell you, it's a very rocky road if you don't have some good guidance. You need to ensure that you have a clear goal and perspective, and you really need to know the tools that are out there that can help you and make your job a little easier, maybe in the selectional process or in the applicational process. But the main thing is plan, plan, plan. You've got to plan basically 6 to 12 months ahead at minimum in regards to graduate school and professional school. So, you know, you've got all your ducks in a row, you've got your MCATs done. And if you're not, think about your gap year, how you're going to utilize your gap year to get more maybe experience. And my piece of advice to you guys, if you are taking a gap year, don't completely dismiss your college activities. You should still be taking a course, maybe one course. And my suggestion is the ologies. So you have physiology, biology of some kind, histology, virology, all the courses that might help you a little more understanding if you're going to go to medical school and get a little bit more in depth there. So again, you know, I will open up to questions, and hopefully I'll be able to answer some. So ask away, don't be afraid, and unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask a question. Is everyone quiet? Anyone? No questions?
I'll go first then.
Okay.
I did have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
Can you talk more about the application process and maybe like what are common issues that you see students always kind of running into?
The application process is actually pretty simple. We open up the application process. If you search Hawaii INBRE, you'll find us. It's a little bit confusing on the website, and I've got to work on that with our IT people because I was doing that the other week trying to find a document and I couldn't find it. But ultimately, we open up a window and it goes to a thing called RedCap where you're making your application. The application is a standard form in regards to first ask you to put in your CV, your transcripts, and then some data in regards to where you're living, what year you are, what's your majors, etc., and why you want to come into INBRE. So there's a couple of little essays that you have to do. The second part really is the laboratory acknowledgement form. And this is the hardest thing. And I know Michael can shake his head at this because it's actually, you're going to do work before you actually get into INBRE. And that is actually finding that mentor, finding that person, he or she, who's going to have that same career interest or matching capacity with the student and really then hopefully promote the students' developing growth. Now, there is a number of those individuals listed on the INBRE website under the mentor banner, but the best thing is to actually come see me or make an interview with me where I will actually tease out, that person might be good, this person might be good. And then I leave it to the student to make the final choice and then come back to me before contacting them and strategize how they actually contact the individuals. Because in the laboratory acknowledgement form, there is a 3-line statement kind of to saying what the project's about. So hopefully the students discussed that already. And then ultimately there's some safety issues, tick boxes basically in regards to the application. The application then all gets centralized to me. And then basically I evaluate those depending on how much money we have, how many student applications we have, how many returning students, how many are going to be interns, how many are going to be scholars. And then basically we process those. And I think I've been so good so far, and I'll touch wood, that every student who has applied has got in. And in the second cycle, they usually get in and become an associate, so they get the money. So the intern thing is just to kind of make sure we're making the right compatibility, the right test. And even if the person you start working with is not the person you're going to continue with, you'll still be out of that intern. You'll actually be an associate in your second cycle. So we devised that to give you a little bit of a break in regards to just getting familiar with the literature and importantly, getting all the laboratory safety requirements. So again, we've got the initial application, which will usually open usually in the first week of May for summer, the first week of August for the fall, and the first week of January in the spring semester. And what we do there is there's a closing date. I think it's usually 3 weeks, and then we close the applications and actually sort them. But ultimately, as I said, the hardest thing is for a new student coming into INBRE is finding their laboratory mentor. And what I usually suggest and tell all students, come and see me first. Don't just shoot off the hip, because you're mostly going to get, you might get a bite. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but sometimes it needs a little strategy, right, Michael? That we kind of lure the bait and then catch the fly, catch the fish with the fly. So, and a lot of professors really appreciate that the students have taken their time to do the due diligence, to read a little bit about their own research and say, yeah, this is something I want to get involved in. But I support throughout the whole process. If a student has a problem or a question regarding the INBRE application, my job also is to solve that problem and answer the questions and get them on their way, hopefully before the deadline.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That helps a lot. Yeah, I was wondering too, because all of the students that I referred to, they were able to get in. So like, I was wondering about that process. So that's so awesome. Thank you so much for doing that.
It really depends on how much. Sometimes I have to go to the PI of the grant and beg for more money. We all do. But ultimately, as I said, I think we've been pretty lucky so far. The program, as I said, usually has about 24 students in every cycle for Manoa alone. So we're pretty lucky to be able to match those funds.
So two other questions I had. First was that we advise students like across the state. And so I get a lot of interested students from KCC and LCC. So would you recommend that same kind of process then that for the other community colleges, and that they talk with their coordinator first beforehand?
Without doubt.
Okay.
If they are if they're at that stage, at the 1 and 200 level stage, they should be getting into some research at the community college level. The interesting thing is, if they're going to come to Manoa, we can transfer them. So they don't have to do the internship. They actually come in as an associate. And the other thing is, we have opened up avenues in regards to students who want to continue their community college project while still being at Manoa. We can also do that. But really, the issue of getting them involved in research, and I think with most of you, I think I can pick a few people out here who I know are doing research, because it's really important to demonstrate that as a candidate, that you have mastery of the scientific process. Obviously, you're not experimenting on people as a physician. You're following particular guidelines and protocols. But your issues of observation and recording, your capacity to interpret those observations and recordings are all based on the scientific method. So this is a very important thing to be able to master as a researcher. But also, there is always those opportunities to be medical researchers in regards to people who get their PhDs or their MDs or MD PhDs in particular, going and wearing both hats in regards to doing both research and caring for clients. So that's something, again, the more students have exposure to this, the better informed decisions they can make in regards to being doctors, physicians. And as I said, I've talked to a lot of students about this. There's some students who I would not trust putting a Band-Aid on my cut finger. Others I would trust without no problem being physicians, because it really depends on both motivation, personality, bedside manner. All these things are picked up in the medical interviews. So this is why they do those multiple interviews. But also the personal statement plays a very essential role in regards to what is the foundation of your interest in medicine, why. And if you give me a student gives me a personal statement that grandma was ill and I was very impressed with the care she got at X hospital and all the doctors, it's like, no don't do things like that, because again, you've got to stand out from the crowd. Most of these medical schools are going to have 60 to 80 spots. That's it, positions. They want to fill those positions with the most eligible candidates who will actually get through the medical school program with the minimal amount of time, no probation. So there's an issue of intellect requirement. There's a level of dedication. So it's really important, again, to put your foot on the right position in regards to the interview, as well as the personal statement, as well as some of the activities that you do. And I'm sure you guys are getting all the advice in regards to make sure you have your shadowing hours, that you've actually asked the impertinent questions in regards to the people who are mentoring you in regards to what is good, what's bad in regards to medicine. So you know what you're getting yourself into, because that is really the important thing. Because I see too many students thinking medicine is more like what you see on the big screen or on the box on the television. It's not. People need to know what you're getting into as a profession and a career, because there's a very large percentage of people who start off in medicine and get their medical degrees and don't stay in medicine, and are known to you mostly in 10 years time after getting your medical degree, you've got to go do your board certification again. You think the MCATs is bad? Board certification is worse. And you need that to ensure that you are licensed in your state of wherever you're practicing. So there's a whole lot of things that I try to ensure that students are aware of through having an interview and meeting with them, to really also test, is this something you are capable of doing. And I tell you, I have been wrong where there's been a couple of students like, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. And they're practicing medicine, but then as I predicted, they would mostly take a couple of steps back and not be in a big hospital, more of a general practice and everything else. Where other students I've seen who have been able to really promote their own education, get where they want to be, and know where they want to be, and that's really important. So you've got to do a lot of soul searching, guys, to kind of figure out, is orthopedics, pediatrics, geriatrics, psychiatry, general internalist, all the types of medicines that are out there in regards to where's your niche, where's your interest. And I don't expect you to know that. My job is to make you a little bit of aware of what's out there, start thinking about some of the things that you might want to do, because there's no guarantee you're going to go get your residency of choice. You think getting into medical school is hard enough, getting to your residency is hard enough. And then after your residency, there's actually fellowships. So you get to then train in your residency in the art of the medicine that you want to perform. And then your fellowships takes it to the next stage where you're applying it more so as an independent, but still supervised, medical doctor. So again, it's a little bit like you're under the arm still in regards to your residency and your fellowship. It's not just being left out to the world that once you've got your medical degree. So again, there's certain things that you need to understand what you're getting yourself into, as well as some of the programs. And, some of the programs have great specializations, which people don't realize until they actually get there. Oh, they do this. So there's actually a very good book that's published by Princeton Review. It's called 162 Medical Schools, and they review it every 2 to 3 years, where they change, they look at the numbers of it, and they go to the individual medical schools, look at the admissions, and get all the numbers and statistics in regards to where you would sit in that admissions box in regards to, they've got this GPA, they've got this specialization, they've got this MCAT score, there's X amount of positions, X amount of thousands of students applied for those handful of positions. So you can learn about the demand for that school, as well as, making your best bets, because the last thing you want to do is apply for these schools, which are, for the the AMCAS in regards to the application that's charging you. And then you might get your secondary apps back. You've got to really think about whether these secondary apps you're in the viable pool, because a lot of these secondary apps are actually ways for the medical schools to make money. So, they might have 5 positions, which are, doubtable in regards to, we might take another 5 students on to finish the 70 student cohort that we have for that year, but we'll send out the wait listing to 250 students at $100 a pop. So again, that's how they make money. So you've got to be realistic in regards to, well, is this school worth being put on the wait list? Do I have a high probability of getting into this school based on my MCAT score, based on my interview, based on my transcripts, etc., and my support letters? So you've got to be very, very careful and be wise in regards to what you want to do and how you want to do this. So again, one step at a time, be informed, listen to your professors, get to know a couple of your professors, particularly as they're going to be the ones providing letters of recommendation, but also getting down to yourselves in regards to your shadowing, in regards to figuring out, is this really something I want to do? Ask the hard questions of the doctor, of the physician, okay? What was your worst subject? What subject what, and I get the students who I mentor, ask them, what sacrifices have they had to make? And would they make those same sacrifices again? So again, you try and get some insight from people who've already been down that track to make your job easier, make your decision easier. So again, there's some very important things to think about. But again, we as faculty are here to help you to try and make those decisions. But it's your decision. It's not mine. I'll just give you the facts. I don't sugarcoat things. If you suck, I'll tell you suck. Because then you've got an idea that I have to improve on this. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat, you know, you're going to get by with it. No, you're not. You need to address this issue. So again, these are important things to find, you know, people around you, particularly professors who have a lot of work with experience with pre-meds and medical students. Like I go down the medical school still, and hi, Dr. Bingham, how are you? It's like I get all the pre-med, all the post, they're now medical students in medical school tell me about their experiences in biochemistry in regards to knowing all their amino acids and their structures, which they're expected to know in regards to in a biochemical sense for metabolic diseases and disorders. So yeah, I've done enough talking, guys. Come on, the dogs are falling asleep. Did I wake you up, Daisy? I'm sorry.
Okay, guys, I have one more question then. Okay, so I noticed in the chart of students that, you know, there were less students this year. I'm sorry, this past year. So for this upcoming year, should we anticipate like the same number of slots, or was it more so just because of COVID that
that was due to more COVID, because what happened, all the laboratories weren't allowing students into the labs. So we had a little bit of a kind of oh geez moment, and we went to more of our reliable faculty who understand, you know, because when an INBRE mentor, when a student approaches a mentor, they may not be a part of INBRE or have had any interaction with INBRE. And actually, there's actually on the INBRE website, there's actually a sheet for the mentors. So when I tell students, you know, if this is a new person who's not familiar with INBRE, give them the mentor sheet too, so they understand what they're getting themselves into. But ultimately, what we'll see is most probably a similar number for this cycle, but I'm expecting to see an increase next cycle in the spring, given we're mostly going to go back to face with the vaccinational extent that we're seeing at the moment. But who knows? Things can change with a drop of an eye, you know, so we're going to try and figure that out. But I don't think I know for a fact I'm mostly not going to get additional spots for Manoa. But again, it gives you the whole state. We've had students who switched because they were in like Hilo, so they're doing their courses via Zoom, so had no real need to be on Oahu, and we patched them up with somebody doing some research in Hilo, so to extend their own research endeavors. So again, there's many ways to do things, and we'll find a way if there's a student really interested in doing that. So we should see roughly the same numbers. I think yearly, we usually service about anything from 400 to 500 students a year. So using the 3-cycle program, because as I said, most of the other schools, I think HPU and then Chaminade are one of our biggest ones. Leewood Community College is a big one, and KCC is a big one in regards to recruiting students, because there's some very active research programs, particularly in the Berestecki Immunology Laboratory, which we actually tap on quite a bit in regards to students going through there. We actually even send students back from Manoa to that lab to learn the skills, making antibodies basically and purifying them. Now, I got a question for Michael. What's your experience with INBRE so far, Michael? How have you felt?
Well, it was kind of jarring trying to go in the first place. I wasn't very confident on how to like approach labs and yeah, but the research seminars and the like professional development that helped a lot, because yeah, I was able to contact a professor, and even though I was like turned down at first, I could get them to reference me to another lab. Yeah, and I joined the lab with very little like molecular bio background, but I've learned a lot this year, and I've done a lot of, I've had a lot of responsibilities that my PI has given me. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, it's been a good
excited to
experience.
continue.
Been a good experience so far then.
Yes.
Yeah. And as I said, with all students, you know, if you're looking at graduate school or medical school, it's something to have under your belt. And particularly if you get to that final stage, publications is one, but getting to the final stage of being able to actually produce a peer-reviewed scientific paper really puts you on the winner's block, because very few undergraduate students, I think less than 10% would actually have that ability or capacity to do that. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with us, Dr. Bingham. I learned so much about INBRE. Like, I knew generally, what the program was, but I learned so much more about how helpful it can be for students. So we'll definitely refer students to you. And thank you so
Yeah.
much for speaking with us.
I'm more than happy. And as I said, if you do have specific students, just let them contact me. I'll send you the email of the slides, and so you can share those with those who weren't able to join us today.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Was there a question there?
Thank you.
Okay, so okay. Aloha. Bye-bye. Say bye-bye, Daisy.
Bye, Daisy.
Yeah. She's a furloughed therapy dog. She's not working at the moment.
She's adorable.
Well, she's naughty. Bye now.
Bye. Thank you.